This is part 20 of our 100% walkthrough for Oracle of Ages. We're going to be finishing up the 4th dungeon in the game, Skull Cave. About to call it Skull Cove for some reason.
It's Skull Dungeon, actually, so you're almost there.
I'm all over the place. So Skull Dungeon anyway. We got most of the dungeon items in the first part. In this part, though, we'll be getting the boss key and taking on the boss, Eyesoar.
And then also the essence of time would begin at the end is the Burning Flame. So as you can see in the first part, we got a lot of the dungeon and the main items. So this one, not as much really going on, but at the same time, you do get the boss. And I kind of do like the concept of the boss at the end, but really this part, I guess we're kind of just going through the rest of the dungeon, to be honest with you.
Yeah, there's not a lot going on, but one thing we can kind of talk about, because we got the switch hook at the very end of the last part and didn't really have a whole lot of time to talk about it. You mentioned while we were prepping for this part that you were actually a big fan of it.
What part again?
The switch hook.
You know what, Red? I was not going to lie. I was not paying any attention to you whatsoever. I was kind of thinking of the next thing I was going to say, and then you asked me a question. I was kind of like, oh, crap. But yeah, like
that never happens.
Yeah, with the switch hook, we get the long shot and the hook shot in a lot of games, and I mean, that's cool, and I'll always like that item, but the switch hook was kind of a different concept where you switch places, and we really don't get in too many Zelda games. I think we might get in Seasons. I'm not exactly sure on that, but I kind of like that whole thing of just switching places as a unique concept. I kind of wish we saw it in more Zelda games.
Well, I'm usually a fan of them trying something different. In these Oracle games, they definitely did, between the seed shooter and the switch hook and things like that are just different items. To me, it didn't seem that much different from the hook shot and the long shot. It does just switch places, which, it's a neat concept and everything. I just feel like it wasn't that much different from the hook shot. At the end of the day, it kind of serves the same general purpose.
Yeah.
But it does get used really well in the boss fight, which we'll talk about obviously at the end of this part.
Well, I think one reason why I liked it so much was it created puzzles. Like with the hook shot or the long shot, it doesn't create a lot of puzzles in the game, I don't feel like. And you can see it's right there where we had to move objects in certain directions to get through that little part. It just created a lot of puzzles like that, which going along with Ages being a puzzle game, worked out really well. But I don't know, I just like the puzzles that you had to figure out using the switch hook.
Yeah, and I generally like the idea of switching places with these jars. In this case, unlike with the hook shot, you've only got a jar taking up one little square of the game, and with the hook shot, if you hit that, you just fall right in the lava right there. But,
yeah, I mean, that's true.
With the switch hook, though, you kind of take the place of it. So it does add a different puzzle element that we don't really get with the hook shot. Sorry, I'm getting my items mixed up.
Oh, it's fine. It happens. Well, you had Skull Cave and Skull Cove and whatever else
I don't know
at the very beginning of the part. But this is a room right here that I can't remember if we had one of these rooms yet or not, since we started the first 8 parts a year ago, and we're just now kind of getting back to it. But I've always kind of liked that room and the camouflage Zols that we had, or they're actually gels. They're called gels right there.
Gels, yeah.
It's kind of a unique concept right there that you have to change the colors to get them to stand out a little bit.
I actually really like that too. It made them look like it made the enemies look a little bit more clever.
Yes,
which
definitely.
I was a fan of. But just the whole idea of them being camouflaged and you having to change that color to make them visible so you could attack them. It was just something different that up until this game we hadn't really had. And like you said, I can't remember if we had it earlier in this game or not. But it was just something that was just something different. And I really liked it a lot.
Now with these 4 puzzle rooms, you kind of saw in the first one. I kind of went slow. Maybe it didn't look like I knew which direction I was going. When I was practicing, I kind of got to this part. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try to go along with this and figure it out at that time, because I was not going to try to memorize these things. So I was like, well, if I mess it up, I'll just restart the room. So I kind of didn't really practice these at all. One thing I did do was come in and take care of the mini Moldorms right away. I think in this room, it's just easier because it can knock you off a square and actually mess up your puzzles. So go ahead, get those things out of the way, and then do the puzzle. It's just a lot easier, I think.
These puzzles and some of the other color-related puzzles in this dungeon definitely make me think more of the color dungeon that they added to the
Link's Awakening,
DX or whatever the remade version of Link's Awakening was.
It's DX, Link's Awakening DX.
Yeah, but just to me, I just don't know how I feel with how the colors really fit in. I thought this was going to be a lava dungeon type thing. which it is, but then you threw in all these random color puzzles, and I know I kind of mentioned that a little bit in the first part. Great jump right there, by the way.
Yeah. I was hoping that you talking, you would kind of just go right past that and not worry about it at all. But thanks for still remembering what happened right there.
Oh, it was too funny. I had to get a laugh out of that. But just like all these color-related puzzles, just to me didn't really fit the dungeon, I guess. But there's only so many puzzles and.
I kind of understand what you're struggling with because you like fire dungeons. And so when you saw the lava, like you said, you're kind of imagining a fire dungeon. And I think the color, like where you're trying to get to, I believe, is that the color kind of took away that fire dungeon feel of the place and really made it.
It really does.
You don't know exactly what it is. Okay, it's called Skull Dungeon, and you see lava, and you're like, okay, this is going to be one of those hot, like, kind of hellish looking places, to be honest with you. And then you get this color mixed in with it, and you're kind of like, well, what's exactly this dungeon trying to be? It's kind of like the Wii U, to be honest with you. What is the Wii U trying to be, So,
well, just like you brought up a good comparison at the very beginning of the last part of like how it started out reminding you of Turtle Rock from Link's Awakening, and that's a dungeon I'm a pretty big fan of, except for that stupid boxer mini boss that knocks you all the way back to the start of the dungeon.
Now, that's a cool mini boss, but yeah, he can be a pain if he does pull that hit off. I do agree with you on that.
Yeah, but just, and then when it started introducing some of the color elements, it kind of lost me a little bit for this dungeon. So it's not really high on my list of favorite dungeons in this game.
And you'll see
of course,
that
not many of them are. We're not a big fans of this game.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I do agree with you on that. You saw in that last room, I barely made that lava floor or whatever you want to call it right there. You can actually equip the Pegasus seeds and get across there a lot quicker. I think I was a little bit too confident and then barely pulled it off, but that room is not as hard if you use the Pegasus seeds.
The Pegasus seeds are a pretty cool idea in general. Obviously, we've had Pegasus boots in, we had them in Link to the Past, Link's Awakening. And the Pegasus seeds are basically just the exact same thing, except they actually make you run for a set period of time, right?
Which I hate.
Just stop, which is annoying as heck.
Yeah, I agree. I just hate that, but...
And I just kind of wish, and I know we didn't have the capabilities at the time, but I was a huge fan in Link Between Worlds when you got the Pegasus boots, and it had its own separate button. That was you didn't have to equip it as an item; it was already equipped. It had its own separate button. We couldn't do that at the time of this game, but I loved having that capability separate than using one of your 2 item slots.
It seems like most handhelds, obviously excluding A Link Between Worlds because you just talked about having a button for that one. It seems like in most handhelds, it actually becomes an item that you have to use. Like in Minish Cap, you had to equip them. I can't remember if there was anything like that in Link's Awakening. Was there?
Link's Awakening had the Pegasus boots as well, and they were their own separate item. Yeah.
Okay, and then in like Oracle of Ages and Oracle Seasons, you had to equip the seeds. So I'm kind of agreeing with you. It kind of like you only have 2 buttons for item, and like having the Pegasus as one of those. Well, I guess in this game technically you had to do that because with only 2 buttons. One of them has to be the sword, so you have to make the other button do something. So I guess with this limited capabilities of buttons, I guess you had to do something like that, but...
They made it work.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, though. It is a lot better when it is just a button that you have to hit, so...
Exactly. Now, Eyesoar, I liked how I kind of mentioned this earlier, I like how they use the switch hook that makes him dizzy when you switch spots. I thought that was a really cool concept and a great use of the dungeon item.
Well, until you mentioned it, I didn't even think about it making him dizzy, actually. Like, I guess I just wasn't really paying attention. I kind of just, like I said, I love the concept of the switch hook, but I guess when I was watching, I never picked up on him actually getting dizzy, and it's a very good point because you can kind of see his eyes spinning around, so just very cool that they actually use the dungeon item right there, and just a cool visual that went along with it when you did use it.
I liked your balls to the walls approach there, where it costs you almost all your hearts, but you killed him in no time.
Yeah, definitely.
But now that we finish up this dungeon, this wraps up part 20 of our 100% walkthrough for Oracle of Ages.